Hey, GCM, I appreciate you, brother. It is, in fact, my 43rd birthday. Running a little behind this morning. I had some trouble with one of my monitors and some other stuff. Just, hello. Because live is hard mode. And good morning. Good morning. All right. I have happy birthday wishes in the comments, and I appreciate you guys. It is, in fact, my 43rd birthday. I know this beard is a damn liar. That's 4 kids in a desert war right there, ladies. So, this morning, I want to talk about something. I want to talk about the Bud Light controversy. Sort of, but I'm going to talk about some stuff that's a little higher philosophical content and political strategical content related to what's going on with the Bud Light controversy. And the reason I want to talk about it is because it's still ongoing, and that's a big deal. It's been several weeks now since Bud Light gave the nod to Dylan Mulvaney and has been sucking hind tit for the entire time since. I mean, if you'll think back to just a couple weeks ago when the controversy first erupted, Bud Light lost $6 billion off their market cap overnight. And just like I said about Fox News, where the same thing happened, they fired Tucker Carlson, and overnight, they lost billions of dollars in their market cap. Guys, that is not the result of a boycott. That's not what happens there. Not that fast. Now, we've seen the boycott have effect. We've seen that boycott have the effect going forward. Mom's right. I'm 42, not 43. I'm old enough to forget how old I am. Thank you, Mom. Anyway. Damn, broke my train of thought, mother. Oh, so the billions of dollars in losses that Fox and Bud suffered from making similar errors, those are losses that come from the guys who bet their fortunes on the outcomes of the decisions of a company. Which means that the Wizards of Smart looked at, Bud Light went with the tranny. Yeah, people aren't gonna like that. This is why that's important. It's just like everything I've said before about the application of Hamlin's razor to Democrat policy decisions, right? Hamlin's razor, never attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence, right? So if somebody has a bad day, you don't have to assume that they're monsters. But when they continue to repeat the same bad choices, and the result is the same repetitive bad result, you can no longer attribute it to incompetence. Now, with somebody in the White House like Joe Biden, it's easy to make that mistake. You look at Joe, and he is clearly in cognitive decline. He's in trouble. He was never the brightest, right? He was never the sharpest tool in the shed, never the brightest rising star on the left. But he has had a talent for using corruption, graft, and money laundering to rise through the curdles and get to the top. That said, when you look at his repeated policy failures, you can no longer reasonably and intelligently articulate a belief that the negative results are unintended consequences of incompetence. They can only be explained by malice. So Hamlin's razor is still correct. You should not attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence. But the thing about being incompetent, I take you back to Jordan Peterson does a great lecture on writing a bad first draft. And he's very explicit. You need to write a bad first draft. Right? You cannot start a project perfectly. Or not the first project. Right? Whatever it is that you want to do with yourself. Right? Whatever the vital work of selfing in which you wish to engage is, you begin at it badly. Right? You don't walk into a foreign language class speaking the foreign language. You walk in and some little Korean chick throws a book at your head and shouts, "Check!" And you learn that when you hear the Korean word for book, you duck, and you never forget the word book again. Right? Legion can attest. After you take a couple of dictionaries to the head, you remember words like book, throw, duck, right? Check, tonta. You get it. So you cannot attribute to incompetence once you understand that by engaging incompetently at first attempts, one gains competence. So you look at the whole canon of getting woke and going broke, and it is not the case that these companies believe that the wokeness will profit them. It could previously be argued that they believed that the wokeness would profit them, even if they believed that it wasn't from the wokies that they would make their money, but rather some bizarre reverse psychology. But the fact is that the numbers keep telling us the same story. Disney lost billions over the lesbian kiss in the Bud Lightyear movie and a couple of other woke remakes. They're getting absolutely slapped over race swapping and bizarre shit in the new Little Mermaid and the Peter Pan thing. I did a whole episode where I talked about their new Peter Pan movie. They're race swapping Tinkerbell, and I pointed out, that's Tinkerbell is the goddess of pornography. Archetypally speaking, what's really staggering in the Peter Pan is they gender swapped a couple of the Lost Boys, which means they completely missed the point of the important psychological thesis that is the difference between the Lost Boys and the mature and competent Wendy, right? So they keep repeating the same mistakes. Now, I want to bring up this article about this bar in Indiana. Oh God, that article looks awful. Let me change it to the article view. That'll be much better. Apparently I was mistaken. There it goes. Okay, so Indiana bar asks customers to return after banning criticism of Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light partnership. The Fairfax Bar and Grill in Bloomington, in Indiana. Yeah. issued 3 statements to their patrons since weighing in on the controversial partnership that launched April 1st. So apparently what happened was this bar told their patrons that if you talk about the Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light thing, or say, for example, I'll have a Miller Lite instead of a Bud Light because I don't want any of that tranny fluid on my table, that they would ask you to go ahead and pay your tab and leave. And let me tell you something. If I have already ordered some food, if I've got a tab at a bar, and you come at me with some political nonsense and tell me to get the hell out of your bar over a political opinion, sweetheart, you have just voluntarily comped my tab. Because what you've just said to me is, I don't want your money because I don't like you as a person. And if that's where you want to be, that's fine. Because to do otherwise, to require me to pay my tab at that point, is a conduct of fraud. Because you didn't want my money to begin with and you let me sit down at that table. Nothing changed since I sat down at this table. Except that you changed your awareness of your targeted animosity. So we're done. So anyway, they said, we don't want your business if you don't want to drink Bud Light because you're, I don't know, what's the worst thing I could say about a person that doesn't, because you're a moral and competent and intelligent human being and have a reasonable position on the highly controversial political topic of murdering and mutilating children. Okay, if you're pro murdering and mutilating children, you go ahead and drink all the Bud Light you want, but you can't have my money. Well, everybody stopped going into the bar, and now the bar is begging people to come back. And here's the point. The boycott is having an effect. It's having a very large effect. And it is not just having an effect by hurting Bud Light in a classic case of stupid should hurt, and we're happy to make it so. It's having that effect by reminding other companies, hey, this can happen to you. And that is extremely important. It's important that we don't let up the pressure. So I'm gonna push the boycott a bit further with this. I say, if you go into a bar or restaurant and they are still carrying Bud Light, you should politely mention to the manager that you are taking your business elsewhere because of that fact. Everybody make it a point to do this. Right, to the greatest extent possible, say, hey, you still carry Anheuser-Busch products? We'll take our business elsewhere. Until you take your business elsewhere, we will take ours somewhere else, just generally. Now, there are plenty of beers out there that are not made by InBev, right? Same thing with Fox News. And here's my case for non-forgiveness. The fact is that what they've done is they have voluntarily betrayed your trust in their brand and their product. They have attacked you personally. And they've done it because of what Whoopi Goldberg said right? They didn't do it because Whoopi Goldberg said it. But what she said is the sentiment on which they've based their willingness to commit absolute treachery against their client bases. Whoopi said, y'all don't need to be afraid of the people on the right. Y'all need to fear us. And to a point, she's correct. Because the fact is that the conservative tactical preference is to vote at the ballot box at the checkout station and with the feet. And Cameron, you're right. That will be tough. Virtually all places with a pour license carry Budweiser. That is correct. That is correct. Guys, stop going to bars. I don't have a lot of power in this particular realm because I don't go to bars. I've never been a big one for bars. But you're right. It is a tough thing to do, Cameron. But at a minimum, you can, if you are going to go to a bar, don't order the Bud Light. Don't order an Anheuser-Busch product, right? If Fox News is on, ask them to change the channel. If they change it to CNN, ask them to turn it off, right? But keeping the pressure on, because Whoopi reminded everybody, the conservatives will vote with their dollars, they'll vote with their feet, and they'll vote with their actual ballots. Leftists set shit on fire. Right? The Republican response, I won't give you my money. The Democrat position is to murder, vandalize, and destroy your property. But here's the thing. Summer of Love, in the Summer of Love, they murdered about 36 people and did about $3 billion in property damage. So it's time for a little perspective. Right? If you forget about the murders for just a moment, because that's a big deal. But let's talk about straight numbers. The left lost their minds, pitched a temper tantrum, and went on a violent, outrageous attack. They set the country on fire and did almost $3 billion in damage over the course of a summer. When the right got offended by a beer company making a bad marketing choice, in less than 24 hours, we did twice as much damage, dollar for dollar, to that brand by simply saying, you can't have my money anymore. The left, with all their violence, cannot do what we can do on the right by simply spending our money carefully. And that is because the left, they're communists. It's not just that they don't work. They don't create anything. They don't generate wealth. We do that. We create. As long as we are the creators, the force that generates the wealth. Remember, their communism cannot exist in a world that does not have capitalism to generate the wealth that communism needs to steal in order to propagate. They are parasites. They cannot survive without that we do the work that they refuse to do. Now, it's also true that we cannot thrive without doing the work that they steal from us. It puts us in a terrible position. But it also means that the right-wing violence of simply choosing to do business elsewhere is more powerful, dollar for dollar, than the entire left-wing establishment choosing to throw Molotov cocktails at federal buildings and police cars. Now, lives, granted, they take a lot more lives. That's just the nature of evil. And there's painfully little we can do about that, barring some extreme circumstances. And I think I've said that carefully enough. But James says they will shove it down our throat till it's the new norm and we get complacent. Not all, but most will break if they don't relent. You're not wrong. We've talked about the phrase, I think it's Eric Erickson that kind of coined it, but we've talked about the phrase many, many times. You will be made to care. You know what? Rules for radicals. What's good for the goose is sauce for the gander. It's not normal. Dylan Mulvaney wants you to normalize a female bulge. There's something you need to remember about things which need to be normalized. If someone says that X should be normalized, this isn't complicated. You believe that, at least in part, from its root, because it is not normal. When you hear somebody complain that XYZ is, oh, well, you just have a heteronormative way of looking at the world. Shut up. That's not a thing. There is no such thing as heteronormative. Heterosexuality is normal by definition. The idea of normalizing, the idea of making normal, which is to say common or average or prolifically occurrent, part of what the idea of normalizing necessarily entails is expanding quantitative occurrence. This isn't difficult. This isn't complex. The only way to normalize a thing is to cause it to occur more frequently than what is already normal. It's important to understand what words mean. So, Alex McDonald says, when it's allowed to infiltrate your schools, it's already the new norm, yet people are protesting a beer and not their school boards. There were less than 20 people at our last BOE public meeting. And you know, Alex, I'll be frank with you, brother. I don't go to the Board of Education public meetings here because, quite frankly, the public education system in this area is a lost cause. It is such a lost cause that we've been homeschooling our children for years for a reason, and it is on the very long list of reasons that we're moving out of the city of Conyers and Rockdale County as soon as it is possible. So I agree that basically I agree that politics is local, but frankly, the school board here, the Board of Education here is, it's beyond saving. And so I intend to leave. I intend to take my family and go somewhere safer. I live in Rockdale County. I live in Honey Creek subdivision. We had a triple homicide in our backyard just a couple weeks ago. And I mean, that's where we are. It's not, and that is also not complicated. We live in a city right now that has the entire local government are left-wing black Democrats. They worship violence. They worship violence, and they worship at the altar of the mighty tax dollar. And they hate you. It's not complicated. Steve Rodemeyer says East DeKalb. Yeah, I mean it's a Democrat stronghold with a 0% murder solve rate. That's if they had the best schools in the world, it wouldn't be good enough to keep my interest. So, but I've spent more time talking about the news related to this story than talking about the concept of absolution and forgiveness. Roger that, Your Majesty. I'll keep it under my hat for the rest of the month. but let's be fair, old man. Nobody that's watching this show is likely to move here and buy that house. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put a pin in it there. I've got a birthday to go and celebrate because I took the day off today so I could get some work done. So I love you guys. Thanks for watching this morning. Thanks for all the happy birthday wishes. And Mom and Dad, I'll see you in a couple hours, I guess. Love you guys. Be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.